All right, Big Ten. This is a Fox national television game on Thursday night. It's the Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt debut for the season. Nebraska and Minnesota. The Minnesota Golden Gophers, 7.5 point home favorites, depending on which book you are looking at. 43.5 the total in this game. Wow. Nebraska, I was surprised that their win total was 6.5, quite honestly. I think that's a little ambitious, even though I really like the hire. I do. And how can you not? Matt Rule should be a really good hire for this program. We saw him turn around the Temple Owls. We saw him turn around the Baylor Bears. Obviously, it didn't work for him in his NFL tour of duty with the Carolina Panthers, but now he's back in his comfort zone here in the college football ranks. And I think he will turn around Nebraska, but it's not going to be an immediate fix. It's not going to be an immediate turnaround. But I definitely like the hire. They've got some pieces to work with. On the offensive side of the football, going to be interesting to see how they work it. They're definitely going to put an emphasis now, finally, on let's beat up the other team at the line of scrimmage and let's commit to running the football. You're going to get that with a Matt Rule coach team, and that should help Jeff Sims, who, comes in as the starting quarterback after many years at Georgia Tech. Keep in mind, a lot of people blame Jeff Sims for the problems with the Georgia Tech, team, especially on offense. I thought he was okay. The problem was Georgia Tech they didn't recruit as well as they've done in the past. I don't think the coaching was particularly good, and I think the fact that Jeff Sims is going to have a team that's committed to running the football is going to help him as well as he steps in as the quarterback here for this Nebraska Cornhuskers team. The defensive side of the football was never really any good under Scott Frost, and it's going to be interesting to see if it can develop here. There are some new faces. It'll be interesting to see how they develop. But if Sims can stay healthy, because he was obviously always battling injuries. But I think when you look at it, they're going to have to really improve because look at the numbers and just everything. They couldn't run the football. They couldn't stop the run last year. The offensive line was giving up sacks. They weren't getting a pass rush. It was everything. For Nebraska, giving them all kinds of issues. But it'll be interesting to see how this offense can develop. It's the left tackle. Remember, Teddy Prohaska. This is a guy that was injured all of last season. You look at his ability to be back now healthy, should help stabilize at least that side of the O-line coming into this new season. There's some decent weapons that he's got to work with. It'll be interesting. Marcus Washington, and Xavier Betts are going to be relied upon at receiver for this Nebraska Cornhuskers team. Now, the defense does have some new faces, but I do like that they bring back a lot of linebacker, and the secondary is probably the strength of Nebraska's defense, I should say. Secondary brings back a lot from last year. Minnesota, on the flip side, as much as, I don't know if it's going to be right away that things are going to click for Nebraska, I ain't ready to lay more than a touchdown with Minnesota. This has never been a juggernaut offense. And look, a lot of the people that follow the Gophers program and cover them regularly say they think this Greek stallion that they've got at quarterback, Kaliakmanis, has a better arm and a stronger arm than Tanner Morgan. And there might be some truth to that because it's not like Tanner Morgan ever was a big-time vertical passing quarterback when he was at Minnesota. But I got to see it still before I believe it. Keep in mind they've had some good running backs and a strong run game in years past. I'm not so sure it's going to be quite as good this year. It'll be interesting to see Sean Tyler, Zach Evans, if guys like that can step up in the run game for some of these awesome running backs they've had previously. At least they have Chris Ottman-Bell healthy at receiver. That's big. This is a guy that's a pretty good receiver when he's healthy. He battled injury last year for Minnesota. But when it's all said and done, this is definitely going to be a ball control offense, methodical drives. Still got to see if Kaliakmanis is the real deal in terms of being able to have that strong arm that some people think he has. I'm not ready to lay 7.5. I'm not rushing to take Nebraska either, but given the choice, certainly lean to the dog here, the Huskers, as long as you're getting north of 7 in this game. And certainly could only play this game under the total, as far as totals go. I know it's a low one at 43.5, but there's a reason the total is that low. What do you think here, Conor? Nebraska, Minnesota in this Big Ten opener.
Yeah, Big Ten ugly game. Let me hit up the chat because I don't have a ton on this game. Brett Kenny, newest member. Appreciate it, my guy. Become a member, $4.99. That's it. And we might be doing even more shows that have that. We already have a few. The NFL show will be with Jimmy and Jose. We got the UFC on Tuesday nights. We'll have a few more and some other stuff for our members. Galactic High, my dude. King Cards, Rants, Justin, Real Deal Prime, The Grinder, Trans, Canada, my dude. Wine Time, Rants, Harold Williams, Jay Smooth. Shout out to all you guys. Jake Kaiser. Speaking of Nebraska, the guy, there he is. Jake Kaiser, my guy. But like you talked about, I'm on the under the 6.5 wins. I don't think they win 7. I think there's a lot of hype here for Nebraska. I thought the hire was good. I think Matt Rule is a college, coach the rest of his life. He tried the NFL thing like a ton of these guys do. It didn't work out. Can Jeff Sims at QB, be okay here? I'm not so sure. The offensive line has problems. And that defense is just so far gone from those old days, black shirts. It's just not very good. Minnesota has owned them the last few years. But this line, like you mentioned here, Bavano, over a touchdown, I don't want to run and lay it either with Minnesota. We know they're going to run it. The defense was very good, 4th in all the country, only gave up 13.8 points. But they lost a few guys here, a few guys in the secondary to the NFL. But can Nebraska take advantage of that? I'm not so sure. This total's low. Maybe there's points, but I'd still look at the under, in this one too.
There's something to be said about the experience that Jeff Sims brings at quarterback for Nebraska, but it's kind of inconsistent, erratic, mediocre experience, injury-riddled experience as well, because this guy's never been able to stay healthy either. So, but he is experienced, and you're right about the Minnesota secondary. Nebraska's got the better secondary, believe it or not, coming into this game. But you got quarterbacks on either side. Can they exploit the issues? Well, can Kaliakmana step up for Minnesota? Can Jeff Sims take advantage of a weaker Minnesota secondary? The way I see it is Kaliakmana still struggled with interceptions when he played. Whenever Morgan didn't play, because Morgan was banged up for a small period of last year, Kaliakmana still threw some bad interceptions, bad decisions. And Nebraska's strength is their secondary on defense. So I think they might be able to force a mistake or two. Keep in mind, too, you think, well, this Nebraska team's been awful. They've been crushed on the road in Big Ten play in years past. Maybe they're not getting enough points here, 7.5. I wouldn't underestimate just how poorly coached and just everything about Nebraska the last few years. And I was shocked that this team just consistently ill-prepared to play football under Scott Frost. The turnovers that they commit, the penalties they committed, it was just horrendous. And if I'm a guy like our good pal Jake Kaiser in the chat here, I'm ripping my hair out watching this team play the last few years. Just the mistakes, the self-inflicted fucking wounds over and over again, week after week, turnovers and penalties. And that killed them every bit as much as their play on the field. And I think just having Matt Rule there is going to eradicate a lot of those issues. I think he's going to clean up the turnovers with this team. He's going to clean up the penalties, the undisciplined play. I think that is something Matt Rule will fix with this team.
Yeah, hey, they're catching a touchdown.
Yeah.
This seems like we're years past. It would be like a pick 'em or something like that where you could look to Minnesota. You're getting 7.5, so I can't wait to watch.
It is, yeah. Nebraska's losing battles. Like if you look at 247 Sports, that's the site that's my go-to for checking the recruiting rankings. Yeah, it's rough for Nebraska, and that's going to be the issue. Not so much here. Like, I think to me they can hang with a team like Minnesota. But when you're going to play Penn State and you're going to play Wisconsin and you're going to play Ohio State, Michigan, obviously, that's where it's going to show up. You're just totally outmanned and overmatched. But I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case here.